Welcome to the Mergers and Acquisition Show. It's just me and my business partner, Dennis, today, as our other partners either didn't get the email or did not get the memo. But again, today is probably the most important in a mergers and acquisition. Yes, it's easy to buy a company, it's easy to buy five companies. But the name of the game is integration. How do you integrate different cultures, different operating systems, different philosophies into one so we can package it up and sell it for private equity for between 32 to $105 million, as we be talked about in the previous show. My name is JT Fox, own over 84 companies and brands, six of them are AI. We do mergers and acquisition. My partner here, Dennis, is also my partner in M&As as well as AI and has expertise into valuating companies, also own a very successful business brokerage. We have a big guest as well that will be joining us in about 20 minutes that worked for Goodyear Tire for over 30 years. He is the master at systems integration. That's a live exclusive in about 20 minutes. Dennis, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. Integration is one of those subjects that nobody pays attention to until it's time to close, and then everybody start running around looking at issues with integration. But this could either balloon the company to a great business, or it could devastate the whole acquisition.
Well, the interesting, this guest is going to be absolutely phenomenal. If you guys could do me a favor, if you can like and subscribe and comment, it takes 2 seconds. It helps the algorithm and it helps us the ability to, get more amazing guests like we're having here today that love this show and love what it's all about. But here's the name of let's look at it from one acquisition to then looking at, let's say, five acquisitions at the same time. So we have one business. Let's say you want to acquire one business, your first business, sort of your platform company. How important is it for you to either keep the same kind of philosophies that people have, or do you go in and you change everything? We're talking about one company at first
Yeah.
because there's pros and cons on there, but what are your thoughts in there? So somebody on here wants to buy their first business, platform company, and then they're going to integrate. But let's talk about this. Should they change the
Yeah.
culture? Should they implement the system, or should they keep what they have now?
I mean, the rule of thumb is do no harm. That's kind of the rule of the game. First 90 days, at least 90 days to 6 months, you can't do anything in the company. You have to learn and understand how the company function. Way too many times do I see buyers eagerly start implementing the changes they want, and that just crumbles the whole company as a whole. So, rule
Well,
of
why is
thumb,
that? Why does it crumble? I think people come in and they say, I could do it this way, I could do this way, I could this way. But the analogy that all you take is that in the first 90 days, figure you have a boat and the boat's got holes. You just purchase this, and if you're trying to go faster, then the boat will take on more water. If you're trying to get a brand new boat, you'll probably have the same problems you had before. So the first 90 days is about to fix everything that's wrong, but also learn the business and not adding new things, but it could be certain things, Dennis. What do you see that people come in when they acquire first business, they realize a lot of times, sometimes they realize the dead bodies that because they did not do proper due diligence, now they
yep.
got problems and sort of time bombs and traps and all there. But why is it important to fix the problem? What kind of problems could they see when they come in?
Well, there's a lot of problems that you can see. Hopefully, you don't buy your first company as a fixer-upper. That's probably one of the hardest decisions you can make is buy a company that needs to be fixed up, and you're paying for the company for the future value. But there's a lot of things. First, there's a lot of synergies in place with the company that already exists. You have to learn how the business actually operates so that you have an understanding of what systems that you need to implement. Way too many times you get in, you start slicing and dicing without really understanding the whole process of the business, especially when it's your first company. And obviously, if you're in business, you've been doing this for a long time. This is the industry that you specialize in. It's a little bit of a different story than when you're starting up with the first company and the first acquisition.
I tell people this is my process. Do I have the right people in the right position doing the right things? First and foremost, because sometimes, you have people that are doing too much, or you have some of your best players in this company doing the things they should not. And
Yep.
interestingly enough, most people, and when we've done this, and I think there's too, they don't really know what their job description is. And I know it sounds crazy because a lot of times it's the owner doing everything himself, and that's how he's been doing it for 15, 20 years, and you have a culture that is sort of me, 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 me. and the employees are just basically tell me what to do, versus now the culture is you're now going to work on the business, not in the business. And people have been used to being told what to do because maybe they're afraid to speak up. And the owner, I've been doing this for 15 years, right? So there's definitely a culture change. Let me ask you another question, Dennis. Should you keep the existing owner working in the business for 3 months, 6 months, a year, or not at all? And that's a very big debate or sort of conversation that a lot of people have different opinions.
I mean, I think it depends. It depends on the situation that you're getting yourself into. If the whole business is the owner, and that's the business, and all the customers, the vendors, and the whole employees, everybody funnels through the bottleneck of the owner, that you have no options but to actually keep the owner on for a long duration of time. You hopefully you structure the acquisition in the terms of an offer where that payment is spread over several months or years or whatever time
So
you're seeking
an earnout
an
clause. So
earnout or sell fine or something, so that you have the seller. If the seller is the bottleneck, then you need to protect yourself and you protect the investment. So you have to tie portion of the purchase price to make sure that the owner actually is in the same in the same. You don't want to buy the business and the owner out the door. I'm in Florida. I'm on vacation. Like, good
but
luck.
you have also there is that you're trying to bring a new culture in here together and integrate new culture. And this person's been somewhat the bottleneck. And even though you own the business, they still have this ego on there, and that could cause more problems as well. Don't you think that? I've seen that many, many times as well, where you keep them on an earnout, but they're still involved in the business, and you want changes done, and they're like, well, this is the way we used to do it. And the owner goes, well, my name and my reputation. There's a lot of egos involved too, as well.
Yeah, he go. I mean, every business owner has this alpha male, alpha female mentality. It's hard. I mean, it's hard. The acquisition is hard, especially buying a business. Is somebody been in the business for 30 years, doing it exactly the same way for 30 years, and now all of a sudden this young buck coming in telling them how to do. Ego is definitely comes out, but it also comes out in due diligence. All right, you see the face of that ego throughout the process of
There
negotiation. It
is
comes
as
out.
well, but it's also a honeymoon period as well. No one's telling you with the bed bodies. Ideally, where you want to be for integration, you kind of want to keep them as an outside consultant. Say, hey, where are the keys for this? What's the issue with that? And not have them into the office, right? Not having part of this new culture, because there's also a sense of jealousy sometimes that people come in and you're making changes and they're for the better, and maybe it's something they didn't want to do, and there's a self-sabotage. And I've seen that before, where people will kill the company because there's an ego of like, if I only had hold on, I would have made more money. So ideally you want to keep the person at bay. Step number two, and just kind of use them to do that. Step number two, fix what's wrong. So if is the marketing broken, or like things that they're already doing, where are the bottlenecks? And often the people know where the bottlenecks are. The people that are, hey, I wish we had this system. I wish this had that. Our next guest is going to talk about what systems to implement. So don't go anywhere. He's a heavyweight, 30 years in Goodyear Tire. Now, like basically works with companies in integration. So you have these issues too, and then you have reporting. And I think a lot of people sometimes they don't know the exact number, right? So you come in and they don't know how much they're spending on marketing. They don't know, everything is kind of disorganized. And I think getting a system where the numbers are very important.
Yeah, system and just in general, integration separates into several different sections. There's things that you need to do now, right before you close. There's things that you need to do at the closing, like minutiae things in the bank accounts and the systems. But then you're looking at the productivity of the company. How do I increase productivity, increase my margins, increase my profitability? You're buying this business. I'm sure you're getting into debt. I'm sure there's some portion of maybe seller financing. There's not much spread left if you bought the company on the peak. So you have to bring either the more sales, more productivity, usually the both, but you definitely go through this whole process. And if you do
Well,
it day
in
one,
my first book, Business is War, you learn more from failures than you do success. By the way, I think if you go to businessiswar.com/bonus and you just get the book and you upload it, or if you already have it, upload it, I'll give you a $5,000 course that I have on how to scale. When I go into business, I have 84 companies. I know exactly how to scale, what levers to push in. very much marketing, very much branding, very much relationship based. Also, buy facts, numbers, and statistics. No guessing. Just pick up the book on Amazon. $25. If you can't, I'll pray for you. And then just upload the proof that you bought the course, and I'll send you that course. But I think there's a lot of scaling mistakes that people make. And I entire chapter on scaling mistakes because I think what happens is people go on assumption.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that it worked before, that it works now. It doesn't mean you used to do it this way. And fundamentally, what you need to take a look at when this company is called better, faster, and more efficient. Now there's another play. You have the AI component as well. Where can you integrate AI to increase? Because the EBITDA increase will ultimately be what AI can do.
Hmm.
Now let's switch over to another part where now I want to acquire five companies, right? Where I own a companies, I want to acquire one, two, three, four. Now I want to do the roll up. Now you may be in a place where you have five different cultures, five different accounting systems, five different types of people, redundant people doing the same thing. That is where the secret sauce is and where the most amount of value is created. Talk about that process of buying more than one companies for the roll up. We've got one platform. We kind of fix it to the culture that we need. Now we're
Yep.
adding one, two, three, four, five cultures to put it together to get that 4 million in EBITDA or that 10 million profit so we can exit between 32 to 105. Please listen up, folks, because this is where the money is.
When you're doing the buy and build and you try to get to the $4 million of EBITDA or $10 million of EBITDA, whatever the EBITDA target that you have, you can't exit with having five companies. You have to have one unified companies. Like our guest was talking about, I need I need four babies with the same last name situation. So integration is extremely important. You can't have multiple things running around. There's benefit from integration by consolidating expenses. So the idea behind it is if I'm running a platform company, hopefully I already have a lot of the operating expenses under my belt that every single time I acquire a new company, I'm able to add my overhead, my existing infrastructure in place to grow from that perspective. But the most important part of integration is not looking really into the numbers. It's not looking into due diligence. It's the people due diligence that is most important, especially if in your roll-up strategy you're doing a rollover of equity. Now you have more partners every single time you acquire a company. People due diligence. People are the facts that can mess up your whole integration. Not as much as the numbers. Numbers you can predict.
Yeah, and you guys can listen to the previous episode. We talk about being an M&A deal maker, where you take one platform company, you merge five companies together without buying them, called cashless mergers, six personalities, and that could be challenging. It is your job as the M&A deal maker, if that's something you want to do, to manage those personalities and be the decision maker, which takes confidence and knowledge base, which we hope by this show that you get in as well. And also, to the purpose of the show, if you'd like to do M&A with us or with my money, go find me companies. The link is there below, or learn how to do it yourself, absolutely free. This is where we find amazing deals and amazing people in there. And many cases, you keep 100% control of your company. I'll fund 100% by your competitors, and then we'll exit together. All these options on the table. The link is in the comment section on that as well. But learning the scaling part as well. I think a lot of people spend time how to acquire a company. And that's why this is why M&A is very different than real estate. Because real estate, what are you buying it? What's the house worth? How much renovation? What's it going to be worth after it's fixed up? And I've done over 1,100 real estate deals. Now, the comparables on M&A are not always the same, right? Depending on the industry, the things, and what do you have? Is there AI? Is there no AI? Are the owners staying? But despite that, people are writing blank checks, and we're going to talk about the next show probably how to use mergers and acquisitions with AI, because it just adds to the multiple. But integration is key, and knowing how to scale is as important as knowing what to buy, how not to buy. And there's got to be a checklist, and you got to learn every possible pitfall, which is this book, Business is War. Like every mistake possible, if you can learn about it and avoid, it could save you millions and tens of millions of dollars and a lot of heartache and possible this. And I also think that there's the person who acquires versus the person that's an operator. And I think that is that two different skill set. The operator is like, okay, I'm buying this. You operate. I was listening to an interview with a with an online company, and the people bought it, and they had an operator who really went in and dived into the operation and not be a sort of a fly night kind of owner
Well,
where you're like, hey, I just own
yeah,
this. I'm going to use the existing staff where the owner was there before, you guys in charge, and I'm going to pelican in.
right.
That could be a big mistake. I think you need an operator.
Well,
And
when we do buy and build, you can't be both the one running the buy and build process and operating the business at the same time. That's why in a lot of our examples, when we're doing a buy and build at that platform acquisition, we want to make sure that that first acquisition, the first platform has an operator that can actually operate the business and can help us integrate and has the insight and the opportunity to actually do have that another bite of the apple and do this over and over again. That's why it's the people that makes this integration go forward and not the numbers. Numbers are the numbers. As long as there's no fraud, numbers are the numbers. The people is that unknown factor that really need to spend some time on doing due diligence.
well, we're going to step into our exclusive interview with the master of systems and implementation, did it for Goodyear, head of North American manufacturing, a guy with great energy. And this is the missing piece to a successful merger and acquisition. If you don't have systems, you don't have a business. Let's switch over to our exclusive interview and make sure before we do so that you like, that you comment, tell us how you feel. Click the link below if you want to do mergers and acquisitions, either learn how to do it yourself or do it with my money. I'm looking for amazing people like you, but you got to listen to the next part and pick up my books are phenomenal for mergers and acquisition. One to put the AI, the other to find the right partners and to avoid all the mistakes as well. We've got a third book coming out as well with three billionaires. So big announcements coming in. Thank you so much. Let's switch it over to that exclusive interview that Zenas and I did. Don't go anywhere. This is a good one. Hit that interview. All right, you're in for a treat here because we've been talking about operational excellence when it comes to mergers and acquisition, how people just really blow it up when they acquire a bunch of companies together and have no idea what to do. And we brought the man himself, who is, as I say, the best of the best. And just seconds before this interview says, they got the strategy, but if you don't implement, it can't happen. Billy Ray Taylor, he's also the founder and CEO of Linked XL, but he worked at Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company for over 30 years. And so apparently we met, which I want to remember, but I don't. And I usually have a photographic memory. But Billy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, JT. Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. Big fan. Like I said, I met you before, so when I got the call, Dennis reached out to me. I'm like, no brainer. He had me at hello.
Well, I saw the video where you talked about, which really stuck, was like a saying. I'm going to let you say, people may have heard it or not heard it. It was a quote that you said, and it has resonated all over the world. In fact, they're calling you the Birdman. It's a
Yes.
new nickname, Billy Taylor got.
Yes.
So what is the quote and what does it mean?
So the quote is, if a bird lands on the branch, does the bird trust the branch or does it trust its wings? And then it said, let me give you a couple of clues. I've seen many birds land on branches, but what I've never seen is a branch break and the bird fall and die. Trust your wings. Trust your wings. Trust your process. When you put in the work, what it means by, I took a major assignment. My mom came up with the quote. And I said, I'm not going to take that job. And she goes, I'm disappointed in you. And she gave me that analogy. And she says, if you don't trust your wings, you're never going to fly. You're never going to trust yourself. Step out there. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And so from that point, trust your wings is, don't let other people talk you out of what you know you're capable of. And that's easy to do.
How come there's so many people who think they're capable of? I think you see the whole internet, everybody's so-called billionaires and a nine-figure people and eight figures and
Mhm.
maybe they've had one or two success, but they haven't been through the heartaches and the failures that you and I have been. And I think you've done it not only in the corporate world, but also
Mhm.
doing it for yourself now for clients.
Mhm.
I think if people have had one or two success, but they haven't been slapped by life, they haven't been through through economic cycles. They haven't been through a lot of the pain and heartaches that a lot of entrepreneurs do. How do you see the world of entrepreneurism, the reality versus what people think there is out there right now?
So when they go out there, right, a lot of them are gimmicks, right? They don't have the process. One thing I would say, and I follow you, you have a process the way you do it. From the moment you go to one of your events, there's a process. Most people are winging it. And so they have those little, I'm gonna say, moments of success. And they may hit it big once, but they can't sustain it. They cannot sustain it because they don't have that system. And what I see, a lot of my friends start businesses and they fail. And I said, you guys are good at working in the business, but you're horrible at working on the business, right? You know how to make hamburgers or barbecue, or you know how to do shoes, whatever it is. But that's what you do. You don't know how to do business. And when you talk about scaling, you scale through a process. And most of those people with gimmicks, they don't have the process. One of the things I say too, JT, that's really mind blowing is I would say, write this down. You can't manage a secret. So if you don't have standards and you don't have processes, then you got a lot of secrets. You can't manage a secret. It's impossible. And when I walk into companies, I always say to the CEOs, and I said, write this down too. You're gonna fail. It's, you know what? In the absence of ownership comes blame. I always say, when two people own the dog dies. Why? I thought you fed the dog. No, I thought you fed the dog. Nobody fed the dog.
Let's talk about the process. A lot of people saying it sounds it's a big thing, but it's really a series of a lot of little things to put in there. And before we get into to actually, one of the things that we do, we buy companies and put them together. And there's basically, if you're five companies, five different processes, that's a whole different story. But let's talk about the individual business to start off there. How do you define process, and give us an example of a process, and what are people doing wrong in their process?
So what I say, first of all, it starts with deliberate clarity. You have to define winning. Be very clear on what winning is, not only to yourself, but to the enterprise. And then once you define winning, the process is, what's the daily management system that you review if you're winning or losing, just like going to a football game. You know the score. But more importantly, who owns what in that strategy? So when you build that strategy or you buy these businesses, and I go in, what's the management system? The touch points where you know if you're winning or losing and if you're closing the gap. That's first, that deliberate ownership. And then I call it deliberate practice. That's that routine. Because if you're a leader and you're buying this company, let's think of a band. If you're trying to play every instrument, the band sounds horrible. Billy Taylor goes in and I'm directing the orchestra. I know what that good instrument sounds like, but my daily management system, I hold people accountable. And then here's the catchphrase: be hard on the process so you can lead easy on the people. See, when I'm hard on the process, this is who owns what. And most people put standards, and I call work standards. This is what you're supposed to do. But a standard isn't what you write down, it's what you walk by. See, what you accept, you can't change. As you're a leader and you say the policy is to do this, but you walk by it and don't say nothing, that's when leaders and teams start to crumble. And it's like your kid. If you say curfew is at 11 or 12 o'clock and they come in at 1 a.m. and you say nothing, the new curfew is 1 a.m. It's the same in business.
You have a specific example of a broken process, and you came in, and what did you do to fix it? So we can have a specific example.
Absolutely. When I went to, I'll just give you an example, Fayetteville, North Carolina, we had no visual scoreboards where you can see there was a process. And what we did was we put this rule in 10 seconds or less, where you had red, green, no yellow. And what we did, we put a management system in first where everyone knew what they own. Now, what we did, the process we put in was everybody had to explain their performance and what they were doing about it. But here's what, we didn't stop there. Every machine had a scoreboard. Every department had a scoreboard. And so there were routine meetings, we put that process in place. Now, at every operator station, there was a standard work on how everyone performs that job every shift. And so you had to follow that system so that we can get into these nuances where everybody's got their flavor of the month. So you had inconsistencies. So the standard work is, we call it leadership standard work or operator standard work. We put those at every machine. And everybody had to do the job the same, no matter what it was, no matter what shift, who you were. And what we did was allow them to control the performance instead of us kind of looking over their shoulder. So it was just leadership standard work. And we documented it.
How does one go from a corporate, and some people say there's a lot of glass ceilings, but then corporations grow to billion-dollar corporations like where you work, there has to
Mhm.
be system and processes. What's the difference between someone who works in a corporate environment where I imagine there's the system versus the small business, the disparity? And then Dennis will ask this question.
Yeah, the difference between when I was in corporate America, I was high tech. I got to see it on my laptop, or I've got to do these things. So most of those organizations, they should, and I say, I use like 10% of people think they make everything happen. In corporate America, you're just looking at data. You're not in the trenches. On the shop floor, I need to see it and touch it. They need to see me. And so the difference between the two is, you're at the top, you're really building strategy, deploying the strategy, and enabling. As you get into a plant, you're doing the work, you're managing. That's when you start to bridge that gap from strategy to execution. But at every level, it's not a common language, it's a common meeting. So when I talk EBITDA in corporate America, the guy on the shop floor didn't understand what that meant.
Hmm.
Right? And so I had to go to his level when I got to the shop floor, and like, if you make 1,000 tires a day, we get $40 a tire. That's how we pay your salary.
Mhm.
He understood that.
A lot of people really don't understand what EBITDA is in general. So like that makes sense. From the M&A perspective, a lot of small companies that we're dealing with, they're in that role of being almost at the job, and the first step would be for them to exit out of their work role in order for it to actually become exitable. What are those? Maybe talk a little bit about the processes of trying to build the systems around you so that you are not the one that does everything and actually building a business rather than a job.
Right. So now that goes into when I go into clients, I actually started to build what's called a strategy on the page. I simplify it. I'm going to keep going back to the strategy first. And then when you're going to scale that business, you get the roles and responsibilities right. But not only the roles and responsibilities, connect that to a metric. Connect what they own to a metric. And then you build a system around that. So if I got safety, quality, delivery, sales, right? When I do that, the system's been around that. And then it becomes easy for them to manage their business. So when you're looking at those small companies, it's easy to align everybody on what their roles in the strategy is. See, and I always say, what's winning for the company? EBITDA. It's not safety, it's not quality. I ask people, so what's your critical performance indicator? And this is something nobody talks about. If this doesn't happen, you're not going to be in business. Those small companies must first identify your CPI, not the KPI, because if I don't make a profit, I'm not going to be in business. I laugh when people say quality. Okay, if I get quality, I don't make money. Am I going to stay open? No. Safety. If no one gets hurt, I don't make a profit. So then safety, you start the CPI, but you build a strategy on a page, and then that's how you start to manage that way. So
what would be some example, Billy, of critical point indicators?
So a critical performance, and I'll go through different. A critical for the business is EBITDA. A critical for marketing is lead generation, lead closing.
Got it.
Critical for safety is no one gets hurt. A critical, right? You see, a critical for maintenance, if I got equipment, is uptime, right? Now those are the things critical for people required to operate. All that other stuff is what you have to do. See, people get caught up with the KPA. Let me break that down. The key performance actions. Now, a KPA is how you get the CPI. Now, let's just use my CPIs to get healthy. What's my KPA? I got to walk 2 miles a day. I got to eat 2,000 calories. If I do that, see, then I'll get my CPI. But here's the deal. After the CPI, whenever you identify key performance action, how are you going to measure it? That's how you get your KPIs. See, my CPI safety, my KPA is accident investigations. Now I can measure that. I'm
Mhm.
going to do that. So you can give me another one. I'll give you a CPI. Any one of them. Just name one that you would, just a function. So sales, right? You got lead generation, lead quote, marketing, right? Traffic. I want to know what kind of traffic am I getting into my, those are CPIs. And so if you wrote an R chart, you built an R chart, write the CPI under that name. Don't just put the name, put the CPI on it. You'll watch that chair, the leather in that chair start to kind of crack because they're tightening up. They're tightening up because they know it's about to get serious. And when all of those CPIs come together below, maintaining that earnings and profit and growth is easy.
Mhm.
It's really easy.
Billy, what's your story background? Because you sound like a preacher who's very a great speaker, talking numbers. Usually I expect you to be bald with glasses and a bean counter, and you're talking all numbers. You're like, hallelujah, CPA, KPA. I mean, what happened, Billy? What are you
It's
I'm
funny.
shocked there. Usually I'd be like, you're like a motivational guy. Usually you talk about numbers, at least I'm entertained. Half the time I'm
Yeah.
bored when they talk numbers.
So I do keynoting all over the world, and I do a keynote called How We Win. But my background is once I came out of college, it was funny. I majored in engineering, but I was an extrovert. And so what I mean by that, I came through Goodyear, started on third shift, and I started doing a lot of speaking while I was kind of managing. And so at that point, I just blended the two. My passion is just operational excellence. And so that's how it came about. So I worked from the shop floor all the way to the C-suite. I was part of a team that took Goodyear from a negative 38 million to a billion in profits. So they were under. My job was to get them the product that they could sell. And so they couldn't get the product. This system I'm talking about did that. And from that, I just started speaking, and that's how I could get people to follow me, right? When I go into these plans for a turnaround, and one of my favorite quotes was, if you make people visible, they'll make you valuable. And so I'd go out and I'd shake their hands. The Billy Taylor 2 foot rule. You get within 2 feet of me, I said hello. This is the Billy Taylor 2 foot rule. And you know what? Everybody, even today, Jeff, when I was walking downstairs, everybody wants to talk. They want the selfies. I love it, man. I give it to them because that's business, but it's what I love to do.
So Billy, let's go back to business on the
Sure.
on the when people are buying companies and
Yes.
trying to integrate, mergers and acquisition to buy
So,
three or four or five companies, put them together, or even just one, and there's a different culture from this company and this company, different people, different culture, and the money in M&A and ultimately is in the integration. That's where the money, anybody can buy anything, but where deals go bad is bad cultures, bad employees, this are used to running on this system and that. What's your advice for people going in and trying to incorporate this company's culture that we own into another company that's completely foreign, that either don't have a culture or have a set way of doing it?
well, when I get first, I get on a unified platform, and my latest client, they bought 5 companies, and the CEO said, "Billy, I've got 5 companies. They got different last names. I want all my kids to have the same last name. Basically, I want to have the same system." And so what we did was we have a product called Linked XL OS, and we unify all of these systems, and we put it on one platform so you can see it all. And what we found was when those people don't have that are distracting you, right? There's a squirrel and everybody's looking here because you have different systems. Everybody's trying to follow the squirrel versus the business. So I said, first of all, create that. I'm gonna go back to the standard on how you want your businesses to run. Create that standard. It's just like your household. If the stepchild comes to visit or the cousin comes to visit, here's the standard in the house, and hold to that standard, but put it on the system. Where I failed at, people see my successes, they don't see the failures. When I had 11 plants, they were all over the place. We built this visual management system. Now that's the key. the visual management system so you can see it. And so when they put that together, all of these are based off standards, right? JT, I'm gonna tell you, I remember it so well. You had ties at the table. There's a lady that registered you. Then you got to come in. You had a complete system. Someone kicked it off, then you came out, right? I was just standing out in the hallway talking to another guy that wanted my attention. He says, Billy, you got to come in. I said, no, I know who he is. I've heard of him. I know who JT Fox is. I knew you, right? And so the standard, get that right. Get that right. And then scale it. I call it strategy deployment. Strategy deployment is the key, but you have to embed that into a visual system so you can see it.
Where did you learn all that? Your time at Goodyear, like, did you feel that you like capped out? A lot of people, I'm sure at that point at Goodyear, you're making a mid six-figure salary, which is a big safety net. And is it was like retirement and then just went on to do something else or take a risk? Because there's a lot of people, I was telling them, if you can make $500,000 a year, you can make 5 million, but that's not easy because there's a corporate mentality. They're being told what to do. And
Yeah.
obviously, sometimes when people call and say hi for Goodyear Tire, everybody knows the brand, so
Right.
they have an idea. So what was the process that made you switch to go on your own and inspire the world?
But I'll start back with that quote, trust your wings. I was sitting one Saturday morning having coffee with my wife. I just did a speaking event that went extremely well. And she looked at me, she goes, I think you're ready to pivot. I've heard you talking. I says, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do. And so after 30 years, I walked in and talked to the chief HR officer and I said, hey, it's been a good 30 years. It's time to go. He says, wait a minute, Billy, can we talk? It's been a good 30 years. It's time to go.
What did you do at Goodyear at that
So
point?
I ran North America operations for all of their aviation tires, off the road tires, NASCAR race tires. All those plants reported to me.
Hmm.
And so when I really knew I was leading a plant that had 3,000 employees and we made 65,000 tires a day. And I was just a young leader.
What was your job? Because a lot of times when I had Michael Eisner at my event,
Mhm.
former CEO of Disney, like it
Mhm.
wasn't really clear what he did all day. And then when I talked to Jack Welch and he passed away from GE, I had him at Mega Success. And
Yes.
he like was just really kind of like just talking to people all day long. And Warren Buffett reads the paper all day. So
Yes.
what did you do all day? What was that? I know it was the eight.
I no, good question. I had a grind. I'm gonna tell you, every tire that didn't get produced fell on my lap. I was the face, so I had to fly to the plants. I had to make sure those things you're asking me about, those systems were in place. I had to meet with those leaders, and so I was on a. I mean, we had a corporate jet, but I was flying to different plants probably twice a week,
Wow.
just meeting with the people, meeting with union presidents. I had to deal with the union. And so the steel workers union, actually, I, I have a great relationship with them. I'm just a straight shooter. It wasn't adversarial. But I actually did the work. Every plant manager, and I'd walk the floor and let operators give me their presentations. And my goal was, again, make people visible, they'll make you valuable. But I really wanted to validate that the systems were in place.
Did you have flexibility to put those systems in place, or you had to operate from what, the top? And how many times were you talking to the CEO? Is it an involved process? I'm trying to get
Yeah.
a flow of
So,
the systems.
so the CEO gave me the autonomy to put all the systems in. But now all regions came up with the same platform. We met, we helped build a system. But then I had the autonomy to go to every plant. Now we put a system in that, like project management, these are the elements of the system. We'll let you kind of deviate to what's good for your culture, but we actually had the walls, right? The walls, the boundaries. And so I would go in to see those boundaries in place. Now, all the plant managers would fly to a central location to be educated, to be trained. And we call it Ladodo: learn one, do one, teach one.
Hmm.
If you don't learn it, you can't do it. And if you can't do it, you can't teach it. That's the way we did it. And so we put the playbook in, and then we rolled out the playbook. And then once you when I walked through the plant, you knew what good looked like. You knew what good looked like. So I would work with those plant leaders. We'd build a system, and then I'd hold them accountable. I'd hold them accountable. I used to tell them, don't ask me. Now, I was never rude, but I said, don't ask me if the baby's cute and you know it's not, because we're going to talk about the ugly baby. I'm going to talk about the ugly baby. And it may hurt somebody's feelings, but we're going to talk about the ugly baby.
You may be the happiest man I've ever met. Like Billy, like today the market's down, and I think it's good because we have our numbers. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think, by the way, I need like a Billy Taylor alarm clock. Wake up! Wake up! You don't have your numbers? I'm not gonna call you out, but I will call you.
Yes. And but one of the things, and you asked me what changed, is something Mom said to me, and I'm very transparent about it. I doubted myself once, and it's easy. Remember, in the absence of ownership comes blame. And I walked in, and something she said to me, she said, don't you ever walk in this door talk to me about a glass ceiling. And I said, what do you mean, Mom? And she says, you worry about your sticky floor. You worried about those things that we tell ourselves to hold each other back. No matter who you are, no matter what race you are, no matter what you're dealing with, we all have that sticky floor. They're not going to promote me because of this. I'm too old, or I didn't go to Harvard. Those are sticky floors. The ones that wins are the ones, like you said, I wake up and say, the market is down, but I can do it. Because if I sit there and say the market's down, oh, what are we going to do now? Right? Everybody's going to follow me.
Billy, I want to ask you a question. I don't know, probably should have asked that off air, but obviously you're African American. You climbed up the ladder. I have the feeling that it don't matter what color you are, you got a giant heart, and you're going to go right through it. But I'm sure it was difficult or not. Has race ever played into a factor in going to your business, going up the corporate ladder and now into the business, or you just have such a strong mindset and positivity that you don't matter where you are, Billy's gonna find a way to make it work.
Great question. You're probably the first to ever ask that question. My wife and others have asked me. The answer to you is yes. And there are people that say that it's not, they're lying to you. It's how you deal with it, right? It's how I tell people, oftentimes I walked in a room and everybody looked at me as an African American and says, wow, looked at me like I was an elephant in the tree. Right? You look at elephant tree like, how the heck he get way up there? Right? He's a black guy, right? Like an elephant. And the thing is,
Blackbird.
Right. And I just smile. I
It's a blackbird. It
smile
found the
because you know
branch.
what's going to
Billy has the
happen.
best
When I
analogies.
walk out, I'm saying, look at that guy. Right? That's an eagle. He's supposed to be up there. He did his homework. He prepped for it. He knew what it took to be successful. And so that's a sticky floor when I say that, right? People look at me crazy and think, I was gifted the gift of hard work. I was gifted the gift of, hey, you see it through. I was gifted that failure is not final, right? My friend says, right, Billy, everywhere you go, there's going to be cave people. Citizens against virtually everything. Those are cave people. You're going to deal with them. And so you just move on because they're the 5%ers. Don't let that 5%.
I think you should have a book of all your acronyms. I think if you have like 12, I have to re-listen to this just to get them all. By the way, the Billyism, you know what I mean, with a little bird on a branch. I got the whole next book for you. I got the whole next book. Dennis, I want to ask another question because without you, this interview would not happen. I watched the videos on Instagram. I'm like, Dennis, it'd be great. I was in Australia. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, I want that Billy. I want to fly like an eagle.
No, you have the best energy. That's for sure. Just rewinding a little bit back towards the M&A perspective.
Sure.
We're talking about birds and you want to know
when we're looking at acquiring a platform company, we're looking at the company that has processes, procedures, systems in place. That's our first acquisition target in our roll-up strategy. Give us maybe from your perspective, a couple red flags, green flags on what when we are assessing an opportunity for acquisition, what are those red flags that the systems and processes are broken? Because from the platform perspective, we're not exactly acquiring a company to fix problems. We want
Right.
the company that already has the processes and procedures and systems in place. Give us some
Absolutely.
of those green red flags.
Actually, soon when I walk into a company and I'm assessing whether they're going to be effective or not, I would look at, first of all, let's start with, do people know, right, strategies? Do they know what winning is, or they're just coming to work? That's also a plus for me if they don't, because I know that's easy to put in place. So it's not a go, no go. I'm going to tell them that it's not a good thing to lower the price of the evaluation, but I know it's a great thing. The other thing is, do they have financial systems in place? Not only, not just for the CFO, I mean, the controller or whoever's in the business, down two tiers. If we can go down two tiers, that's a bad thing if they don't, because people are writing checks and they don't know if they got money in the bank.
Hmm.
See, the controller doesn't spend the money. The other people do that are writing the checks. That's the next one. The next one is, ask for their work standards, their training and work standards for their job. You don't want to get into the details. You just want to know they got a process to do that, because most companies have a system called show and throw. I'm going to show you the training manual and throw you on the job. Not good. That's high turnover. That's how you get high turnover. The next thing I want to know is, what's your governance process? And what the governance process, in simple language, it's my touch points. There's the doors, the daily operating reviews. Those are for your lower tier companies. That needs to happen every single day. The wars, the weekly operating reviews. Those staffs, those functional teams should make sure that they get together every week to see if they're executing their strategy. And then the more. That's me. That's that monthly operating review. So I can tell you it's an after action review. If you're BSing me, you don't have a strategy, your trends are going the wrong way. And the thing that I tell you is missing, that most organizations I go into, are the action registers. See, most people, again, they don't have the action registers where it's closed loop. I want to know who owns what, when is it due, and if it doesn't happen, my first question, this is the most powerful question I've used, is, what do you need from me? Not what do you want, right? I want a steak, I need to eat. What do you need from me? And then once I give it to you, my next question is, why do you accept that? Because somebody's not doing their job. Those are the things. If you have those in place, I mean, you have increased your success rate to 70%.
Billy, what a wonderful interview. I think we can go 4 hours straight and we still wouldn't scrape the bottom of it as well. Billy's also got a book on Amazon called The Winning Link. Billy, JT, Zenis, that's the winning link there together. Really appreciate it. And you can
Yes,
Google him or check his Instagram out. Billy Ray Taylor, a man whose heart is as big as his desire to implement the systems in there
yes.
as well. And if you don't have a system, you don't have a,
Solution.
I was
You
going to
have a
say, man,
standard. You have a standard. And if you don't have a standard, you're going in the dark.
I think people think it's easy to buy something. It's easy to start something. It's differently to remove yourself from working in the business to on the business. That's it today for our show. Do me a favor, check out Billy, check out his Instagram. Make sure you like and you follow. Give it a comment here. Do you like Billy's energy? Who cannot? And maybe you can soar with us like eagles. And while Dennis waits for us at the nest, for all to bring back the little eggs to put them together into one merger and acquisition. I really, really appreciate this interview. Don't go anywhere, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Mergers and Acquisition Show. Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.